A very good morning to all of you. Today, we have a special guest with us. He is Mr. Desmond Lee, Minister for National Development. He has some exciting news to share with all of us. Minister, please. Good morning, Minister. Minister, please.
Thank you very much. A very good morning to all our fellow gardening enthusiasts. It's good to meet so many of you online today as part of this year's Community Garden Festival. Now, even though we're still in the midst of COVID-19, we hope to reach out to even more people and grow our community of gardeners. Today, we celebrate the gardening community's efforts and achievements. In fact, over the years, we've worked with many stakeholders to green Singapore, and our community gardeners have been an important part of these efforts. Since 2005, our community gardeners have set up more than 1,600 gardens island-wide. Now, these gardens create pockets of urban greenery that beautify our neighborhoods. Now, they've also the potential to strengthen our urban ecosystems by attracting and supporting birds, butterflies, and other pollinators. This will support our efforts to transform Singapore into a city in nature. Now, in addition, many of our community gardeners grow edible plants in their gardens, from papayas and limes to herbs and spices. Now, doing so raises awareness of the value of food and the need to avoid food wastage. We also learn to better appreciate the efforts of our local farmers. Gardening with edibles therefore complements our 30 by 30 push to produce 30% of our nutritional needs in Singapore by 2030. This is part of our strategy to strengthen food security and build greater social resilience. Let me thank all of you, our community gardeners, for being active stewards of our environment. We'll continue to work with you to set up even more community gardens in the years to come. Now, this morning, I'd like to also share with you some upcoming plans that we have in store to further promote gardening as part of our greening journey. You know that NParks introduced the allotment garden scheme in 2016 to provide more space for gardening. So far, we've made available more than 1,000 allotment garden plots for rent in 11 parks all across the island. Now, there was an overwhelming response, and all these plots were taken up quickly. Therefore, I'm very happy to share that we'll have yet another 1,000 new allotment garden plots across nearly 20 parks and gardens ready by the end of next year. Now, tomorrow, we will open more than 200 new plots up for balloting in West Coast, Aljunied, Punggol, and Yishun. In addition, we will make available an additional 50,000 seed packets of beginner-friendly edible plants as an extension of our Gardening with Edibles initiative. These will be given out to participants who join us on our online activities and events this weekend during the Community Garden Festival. NParks will also distribute 10,000 seed packets of edible plants which are more challenging to grow, such as capsicum, radish, and zucchini, to experienced gardeners like yourselves who attend NParks' virtual garden masterclasses. Now, these masterclasses will be held over the next few months on a monthly basis. To further support Singaporeans' interest in edible garden, NParks will provide more resources to grow this movement. We want to help interested organizations set up their own allotment gardens in our housing estates or beyond. Our new allotment garden design guidelines will share key design principles for such gardens. We are also launching good practices for corridor gardening, a collection of tips to grow edible plants along common corridors. Successfully and responsible growing is key. Now, finally, our new guidelines on horticulture best practices for edible gardening will help gardeners to grow edible plants healthily and in a sustainable and hygienic way. We hope all these efforts will encourage all of us to try our hand at gardening, whether at home, in an allotment garden, or a community garden. This is a meaningful activity that can strengthen bonds between friends, families, and society as a whole. It can bring us hope and cheer during challenging times like these. Gardening and greenery can also improve our well-being and our mental resilience. Now, for those of you who would like to find out more, Professor Kwa Ee Hyok, NUS Mind Science Center and NParks recently published a book, Nature, Health and Happiness. I want to congratulate Professor Kwa and the team for the work on the importance of nature and the environment to human life. Let me also take the opportunity to congratulate our young winners of the Every Child a Seed competition, which over 45 schools participated in. This celebrates our young gardeners' success at growing various plants, their creativity, and the values learned through their gardening journey. For example, one of our competition winners initially faced difficulties in sprouting her roselle seed and tending to her plant. But with advice from her grandparents and some perseverance, her roselle plant did not just survive, but it thrived. Now, this just goes to show how gardening can bring together generations and teach us to keep a hopeful spirit even in trying times. The support of the community and our people's appreciation for nature are integral parts of our journey to transform Singapore into a city in nature. So thank you all for being a part of this journey. Now allow me to just say a few words in Mandarin for our Mandarin-speaking friends. 非常欢迎大家参加我们1年1度的社区花园节。国家公园局这个周末为大家准备了一系列的线上活动，包括今天早上的实用园艺大师班。我们也借着今天这个机会，宣布公园局将进一步推广食用园，这包括向居民分发6万份种子，以及推出有关食用园艺和走廊园艺的新指南。公园局也会扩大租用园地计划，提供多1000个花床，让居民申请来种植蔬果花草。另外，我们也将推出租用园地的设计指南，让有兴趣提供花床出租的机构和单位做参考。我们希望这些新计划能够吸引更多人加入园艺的大家庭。有了大家的支持，我们就有更大的推动力来实现新加坡成为大自然里的城市的愿景。我期待大家能和我们一起踏上这个绿色旅程。祝大家有个愉快的周末。Now, I will now leave you in the good hands of our NParks gardening guru, Dr. Wilson Wong. I wish everyone a very happy Community Garden Festival.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. To be very frank, when I see the number of people who sign up for this webinar, I very kanchiong because it's really overwhelming. Thank you for your avid support. Today, in our first gardening webinar here, we're going to share with you how you can grow capsicums and chilies in Singapore. In this part of the world, capsicums and chilies are an important part of our cuisine. They not only add color, they also add flavor. They spice up our dishes, isn't it? So, for those of you who are gardeners out there, you have grown, these plants, capsicums and chilies. I'm pretty sure you know how beautiful they can actually get. The many fruits that they produce, the colors of the fruits, and the architecture of the plant is really amazing, right? It's very beautiful, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you like to grow them because they not only look good, they also taste good. However, they are not the easiest plants to grow, isn't it? So that's the reason why I took some time to study the growing and the cultivation of these plants. And I'm sharing it with you today. And I hope you'll find the tips useful. But before I go on, let me share with you, the kind of chili plants and the capsicum plants that are available. On my right, you see this tall fella here? This is the Brazilian starfish. As you can see, the fruits are quite interesting, right? They look like a star, and they are flat. I think they look like UFOs. And this plant has just started to fruit, actually. And if you allow it to grow, the branches will arch over, and lots of red hanging fruits. Very, very pretty. And next to it is a crystal chili. It is a local variety. The name is the local name given by our nursery people here. For those of you who have visited our Singapore Garden Festival horticulture show last year, this was the plant, or this variety was being showcased. It was grown by me, and we actually won, the best of category with this plant. And you can easily see why. The plant reliably fruits at every node, all right? And the fruits actually change color as they develop and they mature. Pretty good for Christmas, isn't it, right? So in tropical Singapore, probably you don't need a Christmas tree or pine tree. I would be very happy if I have a chili Christmas tree, all right? There's still ample time to grow, so get some seeds to grow your chilies to celebrate Christmas, all right? Let me introduce to you other chili varieties. The one I have here, all right, it is what we call the Biquinho cultivar. It is very interesting, all right. It has fruits that are this small, and it has a sharp tip there. So it's like the bird's beak. Looks small, but pretty hot. And of course, over here, this plant here, it produces hanging yellow fruits. That is lemon dropped, okay? So it has a bit of a fruity flavor to it on top of the spiciness. Pretty good if you add a little bit to your salads, but omit the seeds, that it's very hot there. So hanging yellow pendulous fruit that brighten up your balcony. And of course, I have shown you chilies and cultivars that have green leaves. But there are also other varieties, all right? They have colored leaves, all right? So like, for example, this pot here is so black, I think quite difficult to see on the screen, but this is the black pearl because the fruits are round and black. And the leaves are so dark in purple that look almost black in color, right? Adds a shroud of mystery over it, This plant is quite small compared to the rest. It's still young, it can still grow slightly bigger. And now next to it, I have a variegated one, I would say yin and yang contrast. I have something with white leaves. So this is a typical variegated chili you can get from most nurseries. And you see the leaves are white, very, very pretty, right? And the fruits that are produced, it has just started flowering and fruiting. So eventually the fruits will turn orange and red and will add contrast to the foliage, okay? So, and they will peak above the leaves, the canopy, very pretty. All right, so these are the plants that I can show you because there's just so many. I have no space, really. Otherwise, I'll be really in a chili capsicum forest. But before we go on, let me explain to you a little bit, all right? In this part of the world, we call these huge fruits here capsicums. And of course, there will be people who will call them sweet peppers, all right? They're not very spicy compared to the chilies that we are familiar with, all right? And of course, you have lots of chilies here that I have, and all the rest that I'm showcasing, they are hot. And very often we call them chilies because they are hot. And of course, if you check on the internet, people will call them hot peppers. But regardless the variety, the cultivar or the hybrid, I make the language simple, they all belong to the genus capsicum. All right, they come from different species, and there's lots of breeding going on, and you get lots of cultivars and hybrids. So let me just showcase some fruits. I'm very happy. I have friends who also grow chilies and capsicums, and we share our growing experiences. And they also shared with me their fruits, and I'm sharing it, with all of you here, the diversity, very pretty. So I like those, chili, capsicum cultivars that have, interesting fruit shapes, all right? So like Mad Hatter, you see, it looks like a bell, a hat that you wear, all right? And Peter Pepper, all right? Oops, he decided to drop. But he is a naughty pepper, okay? I'm not going to tell you what it looks like. You can imagine. Otherwise, you can Google a little bit and find out what Peter Pepper is, all right? It's a naughty pepper, but it's very hot. And this one is from Japan. It's a mouthful, but it's also called witch's wand because the fruits are very, very long. And this is still actually a developing fruit that I have kind of like harvested to show all of you. Otherwise, I think it will actually take half the board here. Okay? And of course, there are many others. You can see that in particular, I like candy cane. All right? Candy cane, the plant is variegated. All right? And you can see that the fruit itself is also variegated, green and yellow. And of course, eventually, it will ripen, turns red. All right? So I would share with you that if you want to harvest chili seeds, you will want to take it from ripe fruits, those fruits that have turned red. Okay? And because they are hot. All right? Just to share the experience with you that last time when I was kind of like excited, I didn't really care too much about the spiciness. I just went ahead and sliced and took the seeds out. And I really regretted it because some of the very hot, spicy ones, they really burn you. Okay? And for me, I would say that please wear a glove when you want to take chili seeds, all right? Because they are extremely hot, actually, okay? And they can burn you. So if you actually rub your eyes and all that, wow, you probably need to visit the clinic or the hospital, okay? So I warn you first, please wear gloves before you actually harvest seeds from chilies and harvest from ripe fruits. Okay? So I hope this part is clear, and I excited you with the wide variety of chilies that you can actually grow. It's just the tip of the iceberg, whatever that I have here. So what do chili plants need? Capsicum plants need, What do these plants need actually in terms of growing conditions? They, like most edible plants, love the sun. If you have a balcony or corridor, our sun in these areas, in high rise, we don't get the full day sun. So you probably need to ensure that they get direct or filtered sunshine for at least 4 hours daily. And of course, for those of you with small spaces, and you might not have a bright balcony or corridor, and you don't have a garden space outdoors, you can actually try to grow the smaller ones, all right? And you can grow them under artificial lights. These plants thrive under artificial lights. We have a showcase in Jurong Lake Gardens where I work, where I put up an artificial light showcase. You can actually refer to that and take some tips, and you can do up your own light garden at home, and you can grow edibles, even though you might not have a lot of sun and you might not have space, okay? Start off with a few plants so that it's easy for you and you can manage, okay? So light 4 hours at least of filtered or direct sunshine. Next, in terms of the soil or the growing media itself, they like well-drained, moisture-retentive type of growing media. What do I mean by that? Basically, when you water the plant, the water drains out quickly, okay? It does not, stay in the soil and keep the plant under wet feed conditions, okay? Because you'll suffocate the roots and the plants will die. Okay? And this is something that you need to take note of if you grow them outdoors where, it rains. Whenever it rains or when it's during the rainy season, you have to be a little bit on the careful side. And they need to be moisture retentive. Because when plants grow big, like our friend here, okay, this Brazilian starfish, I have to water it at least twice a day because she's a very, very big drinker. All right, they will wilt if you don't water them. And if you live in a high rise where it is very windy, and if your pot is small, then they will drink up doubly fast. So keep up with the water needs of your plant. All right. Next, in terms of fertilizer, it is important for you to boost the growth of your plants. When they are young, you can use a balanced fertilizer, which has NPK ratio that is, the same, 5, and so on, so that you can boost the growth of the plant, so that it bulks up very quickly, right? So that it will be strong. However, do not overdose. You manage that because if too much soft growth on your plant can lead to issues. Because a lot of soft growth will invite sucking pests such as aphids and whiteflies to your plants. So manage the plant nutrition a little bit. And when the plant is starting to flower, you can switch over to something that has higher phosphorus or potassium, okay, ratio, content that is. So when you buy a fertilizer, you see the last two numbers are higher, that fertilizer will be suitable for you to grow plants that are flowering and fruiting so as to boost fruit production and flower production, okay? So I hope, these very basic tips will actually, be clear so that all of you can get going. So before I, go on to even more complicated stuff here, let me show you a picture. The shelter that I use to grow plants in Jurong Lake Gardens. The first picture, please. Yes. So this is a very simple shelter that I did up in Jurong Lake Gardens where I work now. And you can see some of the chilies that I showcase here in that shelter using PVC pipes and a very clear plastic sheet on top. So why is this done that way? First, I did share with you that all your plants here need good sunlight. So a clear sheet of plastic is needed so that you let as much light as you can through it. But what does that plastic sheet do? It actually blocks out the rain. Because now we are reaching the end of the year, we are expecting higher rainfall. And I did share with you earlier that water, the plants love water, they need to drink. But they hate when their feet is constantly wet. For those of you who have actually grown some of this, or this, I would say, some of the more sensitive cultivars, you will actually notice that under heavy rain, right? If you don't put that clear shelter on top, your leaves will be hit by the rain, they'll get fungal spots. Next picture, I think I see that I have a picture. Let's take a look at the picture with a fungal spots so that, yes, this one, right? You can see that some of you would have encountered this. And it spreads, all right? And the leaves will drop. And why does this happen, actually? When heavy rainfall occurs, the rain will hit the leaf tissues and kind of injure them. So you have an open wound. And with rain, it passes through the air, there are spores and so on, and soil splashes bring up microorganisms, which will then infect the plant, and you get fungal spots like that. So instead of relying on fungicides, a lot of us who grow edibles don't like fungicides, isn't it, right? Chemicals, right? That's the reason why a lot of us want to grow safer food for ourselves, isn't it? So the best way is to prevent it from happening. So you shelter your plants, that would actually help you to reduce the incidence of fungal diseases. And of course, it prevents wet feet from occurring so that your plants don't die when their roots actually drown. If it's too wet, the roots will drown and they will actually die. Okay? So that is the first tip first secret tip I have for you. Grow them under shelter. Of course, there are cultivars that you can grow that will be able to take the rain. I'm sure some of you, I've gone to the allotment gardens, you guys are actually growing pretty interesting things there. There are a couple of chilies that I saw that can take the rain. And actually, to be frank, for those of you, if you are good at grafting plants, you might want to try grafting some of the sensitive cultivars that I have here onto the one that can take our tropical conditions. That will help you a lot to combat the issues of wet feet during the rainy season. Okay, so let us move on to the next set of slides to show you some pictures. So let's take a look at what I have prepared for you. Okay, these are my lemon drop chilies. Okay, you can see there are black color spots there. Not pimples, but they are actually the mark which are made by fruit flies when they try to lay their eggs. Okay, so those of you who grow fruit trees, you'll be familiar with this. When you cut open your mangoes, you got maggots inside. So chilies are also affected by fruit flies. Okay, whenever a fruit fly tries to lay an egg on the fruit itself, the chili plant knows my fruit is going to be gone, going to be destroyed. I will abort it. So what will happen to it is that the fruits will drop. And if you have a very bad fruit fly infestation in your garden, potentially you might have a case whereby your plants will abort all its fruits and you have no chilies to harvest. And fruit flies are difficult to control using regular pesticides because they just come and go. And again, we don't want to use pesticides, isn't it? So there's a way that I can share with you how you can make your own fruit fly trap to control or manage this issue. So I have something prepared here. So this is a plastic bottle. Okay, everybody can get it. So you need to burn holes on the side, somewhere in the middle. All right, I actually used a soldering iron. Okay, so you can use a drill or something like that, but make it small, not too big, because you want the fly to go in, but not able to come out easily. But put it on the middle part of it. The bottom part is where you fill it up with water. You can put in a little bit of soap. You can put in neem oil, the insecticide that we always use all the time. Put it in there, because when the fruit fly gets attracted inside, it tries to struggle, right? Isn't it? Then some of them will fall into the water and they'll drown. And the neem oil will help with the process. Sounds cruel, but sometimes we have no choice to do it. And of course, the thing that makes this fruit fly trap work is this. You need to take a look. I'm going to unscrew the bottle. So I have a bit of tissue. You can use cotton, cloth, anything, all right, that soaks up something. So you need to go to the nursery and buy fruit fly attractant, all right? You soak this with the fruit fly attractant, and then you fill it up with water, all right? And you just replace the cap and hang it in your growing area where your chilies are. And in the morning, you'll see fruit flies going in, and after that, they'll get trapped. So that will help you to reduce fruit fly infestation. Of course, if you're not the DIY sort of person, nowadays online shopping platforms have lots of things that you can buy. And you can actually key in fruit fly trap, and you can find one that you can buy. All right, the pheromone you probably need to replace from time to time. Okay, so what is the next issue that chili growers and capsicum growers will face? Let's take a look. How many of you have seen this? The underside of the leaf got this white thing that's there. Okay, there's a white, bits and dust like that. So that is actually an indication to tell you your chilies are infested with white flies. Okay, this is the one of the life cycle stages of white flies, and you need to control this. Because when this happens, because you see the thing about this is on the underside of the leaf, if you don't check your leaves, all right, what will happen is that the infestation goes unnoticed, all right, and the pest will actually have a very good time, sucking the life out of your plant. So white flies, you have to be careful. It's a sucking pest. It will actually spread viral diseases. Okay, some of you will realize that the leaves will become crinkled, have mottling yellow patches on the leaves, and the plant growth will be affected. And mind you, viral diseases in plants are not curable. Okay, and white flies actually bring with them another pest, which are what we call broad mites. They are microscopic. They'll take a ride on your on the white fly and infest your plants. Okay, let's take a look at the next picture. How many of you actually see this on your chili plants? Okay, the new leaves become crumpled, they become brittle, the growing tip dies, and the plant eventually will just drop all its leaves, and that's it. Your plant just goes bye-bye, to you. So that symptom or that sign actually is what we call broad mites. Okay, it's a reaction of the plant to broad mite infestation. Okay, you can just key in to the internet, BROAD, okay, broad mite. It's very interesting why is it called broad mite, but it's very, very small, right? So you can't see it with your eyes. And when you see their presence, often is when the plant actually has that crumpled leaves that you see, okay? And it's actually quite serious, and your plants can actually die. So when you have broad mites and you have whiteflies, okay, these are two pests that you probably need to catch it when it's very early. It's not when it is very serious. Then when you try to do anything about it, it can be very, very difficult to manage, especially if you're using organic means. All right, so you need to check your plants, take appropriate action. You can use neem oil, okay, or if you can get your hands on a new botanical pesticide, which is called matrine, MATRINE. Okay, it is extracted from a Chinese medicinal herb, okay, called Sophora flavescens, 苦参. That pesticide is botanical, environmentally friendly. It's low toxicity, but it's very effective against whiteflies and broad mites. Okay, so that is something that what you might want to look out for. Not easy to find. All right, so these are some very common problems. Okay, you have fruit flies, all right, and you have your broad mites, and then you have your fruit flies. Okay, and of course you need to shelter your plants. So I would say in Singapore, these are some of the very common problems that you will encounter when you grow your chilies and capsicums. And by taking note, watching your plants every day, some of you like to talk to your plants, right? Correct? So go and look at your plant, flip the leaves every day, go and see whether if there are any whiteflies and all that. That will help a lot. Okay? Because we want to do something that is environmentally friendly. Yeah? We are going to eat it. You don't want to have chemical pesticides, correct? Right? So you want to use the least toxic means, so you need to take action early. But one of the things that I must emphasize here, because you're growing edible plants, whatever that you use, especially organic pesticide, homemade remedies and whatnot, there is something that I need to warn all of you, which is what we call food safety. All right? Make sure you soak and you wash your produce, thoroughly before cooking. And especially for some of you, if you like to eat things raw, for salads and all that, the washing part is especially important. I'm trained in food science, so this is something that is very close to heart. And I happen to become a horticulturist, a gardener, and I combine the two things together. I'm sharing it with you. How relevant isn't it, right? Okay, so I would say that my sharing is more or less done. I want to keep it short and sweet. Tell you straight to the point. What are the things that I want all of you to know? Okay? And now, I want to take some questions, okay? Because I have about, say, 20 plus minutes, so I can answer a lot of questions, right? So I hope I'll be able to answer your questions. And so let me just pull out the laptop, I'll say an iPad here, to take a look at some questions. Okay, so I have Teresa Cole. She asked, what do you mean by soft growth? Does it appear? Let me see. Give me a minute. All right. So, Teresa asked, what do you mean by soft growth? Okay, soft growth means this. Some of you, have you noticed that when you try growing your plants, they grow very, very rapidly. The new leaves, they are very, very soft. They are not as tough or hard compared to the older leaves, right? So they are very succulent, very, very succulent, and they break easily, okay? So that is what I mean by soft growth. And when you have soft growth, okay, it's very juicy. And due to the sap inside, all right, without going into the technicalities, they will attract sucking pests to your garden, to your plant. So you probably get aphids. So those of you who tried growing basil, you want lots of leaves. And a lot of you will furt your basil, right? And the next thing you see the crinkled young leaves, they're all crinkled up, and you open those crinkled portions, you see aphids inside. So that is a typical example. So for chilies, I do get aphids on them. All right? Next. Let me take a look. Okay. Koi Yong Tan. has a question here. After putting pesticides, okay, can we harvest the fruits immediately? Okay, my advice to you is this. You should buy a pesticide that is indicated for use on edible plants. So a good pesticide manufacturer, when he sells his products online, he should actually declare what is inside. And of course, he will indicate on the label whether it is actually suitable for use on edible plants. And next, on the label, he will actually tell you how much to use. Please follow instructions. And he will tell you what we call post-harvest, withholding period. Withholding period that you need to observe. That means after you spray the pesticide according to the dose that he tells you, how long you have to wait. After that, you can harvest. Okay? So this is something you need to respect and observe. Because this is an interval of time that has been verified by the manufacturer that after you spray the pesticide, under certain garden conditions, I would say usually field conditions, outdoor conditions, with the action of rain, the sun, and so on, how long it takes for the residue on the plant, that means how much you spray on the plant, the pesticide, how long it takes for the levels to drop to a level that is safe for consumption. All right? So a good pesticide manufacturer, a responsible one, will declare what it is for, the ingredients, whether it is suitable for use on edible plants, and the withholding period. Okay? These are things that I need all of you out there to be observant and observe. Okay? And wash your vegetables before you want to eat. And of course, when you use pesticides, there's something I need to be telling all of you about. Well, NParks has moved on to what we call city in nature vision. It is very important. Because when we grow our edible plants, very often we forget that around the environment, we have beneficial fauna that's with us. Okay? A lot of you like to tell me, write to me in various formats and tell me, hey Wilson, why my chili don't fruit lah? Why my so and so don't fruit? Okay? We all know that plants need pollinators to help us to pollinate the flowers, isn't it? So when you use your pesticide, I want all of you out there to observe, to go and read up what you are using. Okay? Whether it affects pollinators out there, the animals out there. Because the pollinators, if you spray onto the flowers, you kill the pollinators, you have no one to pollinate and transfer your pollen from flower, then you got no fruits, isn't it? Right? And of course, there are also the good guys, the predators in your garden. All right? So it's a good opportunity, educational journey, not only just for you, but also for the young, to learn about the good guys in your garden, because they help you to do pest control. Okay? So when you use a pesticide, use it prudently. Need to learn how to use it. Okay? It brings me to this point that's how I probably missed. A lot of you who live in high-rise, right, would tell me that sometimes your chilies don't fruit. Correct? The flowers just drop off. Whereas if you grow in an outdoor garden, you have no issues with that, right? So what causes this? Number one, lack of pollinators. Okay? Next is because your air is very dry. Sometimes you have a very windy corridor, windy balcony. It's too dry. The humidity is too low. And it affects the pollen transfer. Okay? And chilies can actually, some of them can do self-pollination. Right? So it affects pollen transfer. Release and transfer of the pollen and so on. So it might be good for you to grow your chilies in a more sheltered area without all that wind. So that's one. Because wind actually, when you blow, your chili can break. Okay, I grow my chili in Jurong Lake Gardens at JLG. The wind blow, and my heart also tam, because it may break the branches. So the wind can actually affect a lot of things. So advice is you can grow it in a protected area where, lessen the effects of the wind so the humidity can go up so that pollen transfer can happen. And of course, with that, you can also help the plant a little bit. You can use a cotton bud, a brush to go and transfer pollen, or you can use an electric toothbrush, which is now widely available, isn't it, right? You can just, shake the flowers a little bit with the electric toothbrush, and then it can help with pollen transfer. Okay? Sorry, a little bit long-winded on that because I want to talk about pesticides because everybody uses pesticide anyhow, so I need to make sure that all of you out there use it properly. Okay, I very loso bo pian. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, give me a minute because a lot of questions, but I should have answered earlier, during the course of my talk. So let me just pull out something that is not being covered, all right? Okay, Adeline Neo asked me this question. What is the germination process and how long should I soak the seeds before leaving them to germinate? What type of soil and other conditions are needed for germination? In this case, for chilies, frankly, I don't soak my seeds. Okay, especially if you harvest it fresh, there's moisture in them. All right? So, in the short answer, I don't soak my seeds. Okay? So, for good germination of chilies, okay, make sure you use fresh seeds, as fresh as you can. Harvest them from mature fruits. Okay? You need to know your chilies, of course. So, like, for example, my red mini bell here, it has red fruits. I know it's ripe, right? Then I collect the seeds. So you need to know your chili variety. Some of them will turn red and so on. Some of them don't turn red when they are ripe. So, like, for example, black fire, over here you can see. Okay, I need to focus on the camera. Okay, black fire, see? It is still black, it's still young. All right, and of course your black cobra, also black now, very dark. They are very pretty. I like all the chilies. They got so many different colors, like Christmas tree bubbles like that. And they will ripen and they'll turn red. And when they'll turn red when they ripen, so you can actually harvest the seeds from these fruits. You need to know. So you must make sure that you harvest from mature fruits. Use them fresh, germinate them quickly. Right? If you have too many seedlings, give it to your friends. I'm pretty sure a lot of people like it. Okay? So, because if you keep chili seeds for too long, they dry out, they shrink. Then what is going to happen? And a lot of us, I tell you, me included, are guilty. Sometimes after I harvest the seeds, I just left them somewhere. I don't know where I put. Then some of us put it inside the drawer, put it inside the garden shed, too hot, too dry, conditions all wrong. Then the seeds will not be viable. Okay? So use fresh seeds from mature fruits. Harvest them with gloves. Okay? And next, the germination media, okay, or the seeds raising mix. I have shared earlier in some of the different NPAX platforms as well as our YouTube video. You can use that recipe, growing media or the seed raising media recipe for germinating your seeds. What I do at home is that I use peat moss, vermiculite, and perlite. Okay? You want to know a little bit more about these different types of components of making up growing media? Stay tuned for the Facebook Live on NPAX Facebook later on at 3 to 4. Me and another colleague will be talking to you a little bit about growing media. Okay? And I will also be sharing with you what vermiculite and perlite is. If I don't have the samples here, but you can Google. But if you want, later you can see, okay, in the Facebook Live session. So you can use these three components, peat moss, vermiculite, and perlite, in equal amounts. And then you mix them together. You take 1 cup this, 1 cup that, the other cup. Mix them together, and then that gives you quite a good open and moist seed raising mix. And what I can share with you is that at home, I will use a pot, I fill it up with this media, moisten the mix, put the seeds. Then after that, I will use a plastic cup to cover it, so to conserve moisture, so that it's humid, it don't allow the seeds to dry out. And my chili seeds usually will germinate in about a week or less. And the germination rate will depend on the cultivar. Some will give me very good germination rates of about 100%. I get a bunch of seedlings coming out. Sometimes I get a couple only, all right? So it differs from cultivar to cultivar. So I hope I answered this question, but make sure you don't put it in a place that the seed will dry out, of course. Okay, and let's see. Let me go on to the next question. Let's see. Right. Well, a lot of questions. Today are very busy. Give me a minute. Okay. Boon Lee Ling asked me this question for all of us. Okay, I'll share with you. How to build the shelter? Any guidance? All right. First, you need to make sure that you use sturdy materials. All right. On online platforms, you can find, similar scaffoldings and whatnot. You can actually buy one if you are not the DIY type. I would say that building a shelter is not that simple. I like to do DIY, so it's quite easy. What I used to do is that I use PVC pipes that are quite cheap, where you need to use the T-joints and all that to actually fix it up and join the parts together. And a very good place for you to actually visit to see how such shelters can be made is to go and visit any allotment garden in our parks and gardens, right? You can see a lot of people make their own. And the plastic sheet on top, you can go to any hardware shop in Singapore. The one that I use it on my shelters in Jurong Lake Gardens, I use what they call tablecloth plastic. It's actually very thick, very good. It doesn't break, and it doesn't go blur. Because some of the plastic, if you use it for prolonged periods outside in the sun, it will actually turn into a white color. Then that will actually scatter and reduce light that gets to your plants. Important thing to note about this is that you make sure that the height of the shelter is tall enough, because sometimes you make a very short one, then your chili grow, and then hit the roof, and how? You have to raise the height again, make another one, right? So you need to take note of that. But as you go higher and higher, on the sides is empty for your chili. So the rain will actually come in on the side and will hit your plants. So these are some little tips that I can share with you when you make your shelters. And make sure you weigh them down, okay? Because with a plastic sheet on top, you see that picture, thank you very much. With that picture there, you put it somewhere where it's very windy, the whole thing can fly away. So make sure that you weigh it down. Okay, you can use jerry cans of water and so on to tie to the sides and weigh it down. And to actually to hold the plastic in place, you can use what we call the farm. They use it in the commercial farms. There are those plastic clips that you call it greenhouse clips that you can use to secure the plastic and shade nets and whatever that is on your shelter. But make sure you get the right diameter. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Quite a lot of details. Okay, let me take a look at the rest. Okay, let me see. Okay, PVTO asked me this question: where can I buy the plastic sheet and clips for the shelter? Okay, very simple. Clips, you can type in, you call them greenhouse clips. Online shopping platform should have it. The plastic sheet, like I said earlier, you can get them from hardware shops. You can actually ask them to cut to the size that you want, and you fit it onto your shelter, okay? This is very useful, especially if you want to grow leafy vegetables, anything that's scared of the rain, or even scared of the sun, you just put a shade cloth over it and you can grow anything with it. Okay, I have a question from Grace. She asks, how to ensure the soil, the soil is not soft if I'm using only coffee grounds and compost? Okay, I would like to clarify this. Your soil that you want to use, especially if of the loamy or the clay type, they actually tend to harden or maybe become sticky over time. So you add organic matter. I will always tell you to use compost. Okay, that's the cheapest way to break it up so that the growing mix is fluffy and fireable. Okay, when you hold it in your hand, it does not stick together like plasticine. Okay, and for coffee grounds, this is something that I want to tell all of you here is that please, I would not encourage you to use coffee grounds directly onto your potted plant, right? Because some of you like to add a little bit, and then you know what happens? They add and add, and then your whole pot becomes a dumping ground for coffee grounds. I've seen it, right? So I would suggest that you compost your coffee grounds in another area because it's a good source of organic matter, surely. A lot of us want to reduce food waste. So what you can do is actually create a compost pile or a bin somewhere. Let it mix it with soil and other green scraps that you encounter from the kitchen or from the garden, and then you let it compost before you use them on your plants, whether in pots or in the ground, okay? Because you don't want the breaking down process to occur in situ, that is where your plants are, because it may draw out unnecessarily the nutrients that your plant need for growth, okay? So we are left with a little bit of time only. Thank you for tuning in, really. I will answer the last question, all right? So, Adeline Neo asked me this question again. Why do we not use a high-end fertilizer but a balanced 5-5-5 fertilizer at the beginning of the growth? Like I said again, let me just repeat. The reason why I don't want you to use too much N is because it is not balanced. What will happen is that it's going to push the plant to produce lots of green growth, and it will be telling the plant, hey, produce lots of green growth, lots of green leaves. And then you will actually get issues with the plant that I shared with you earlier, the pest issues, because you get aphids and all that coming to attack your plants. Okay, so fertilizer is a big science, okay? And very often the timing and the use of the fertilizer is important, all right? So when you go to the nursery, all right, I want to tell all of you here is that there are many different kinds of fertilizer. Really, I can go and give another talk on this, and I don't know when you'll end. So for fertilizers, right, chemical, and of course you have your organic types. The organic types generally have lower nutrient content, may not be complete. They may not have every nutrient in it that the plant needs for growth. And you put it there, it will take time to break it down, and then your plant can absorb it. Then chemical fertilizers got water-soluble one, which you mix and pour, straight away your plant absorbs it. Whatever that leaks out from the base of the pot that comes up, you will not be able to receive any nutrients. But also there are pelleted ones. The pelleted ones, you have the coated ones, and you also have those that will then dissolve straight away. Okay, so these are things that you need to take note, okay? Because some people will ask me, hey, your fertilizer, why is it that some will work, some don't work? So there are many different types. So make sure you ask, if you're not sure, the manufacturer or the nursery guy who's selling you this, all right? Okay, I got a cue from my studio folks here, all right? I can answer one more question. So let me answer this question from Emily. She asked, there are many holes on the leaves. Is it wise to remove the entire branch? Okay, so my short answer to you is this. They have many holes, but got pests or not? If you don't see any pests on the plant itself, because the holes can be made by beetles, can be made by snails and slugs, even birds, okay? They can kind of chew your leaves a bit. But if there are no pests on your leaves, then it becomes merely a cosmetic problem. Looks ugly to me and you. But remember, every piece of leaf on the plant is a solar cell. It garners energy from the sun to photosynthesize to make food. So if you prune excessively your chili, okay, I can share with you, this is my chili plant. Some people like to do, potong the fella halfway through, and they cut it. They say, on top very ugly, I chop the fella. Then you know what happens? The chili plant can actually die because it's over pruning. Okay, it applies to any horticultural plant out there. If you cut the plant excessively, it goes into shock and the plant dies. So if there are no pests on the leaves, I would say, leave it. It's just cosmetic. You need the plant need the leaves to actually make food, to grow better, to continue growing, right? So when you see holes, there's only a few pests that will do this. Grasshoppers, snails, slugs, all right, beetles. So wash them out. That's why you go to the garden, you must actually do some inspection on and off to see, at night especially, because those of you who grow, you know your snails will come out at night, right? So these are things that you need to watch out for, so don't over prune your plant, all right? So I've come to the end of my chili growing webinar. I hope the knowledge I shared with you today is useful. Thank you for watching, and see you in the afternoon for the Facebook Live session on soil and growing media. Thank you very much.